Hello everybody, how is everyone doing? You're probably here for another update on my VR game, but for those who were brought here magically by a YouTube algorithm, I'm currently working on a hobby project to create my own Sword Art Online VR game in Unity. I think it's been roughly 1 month since I started creating this game, so I'll go over some of the progress of the game and some updates on what I did this week. Well, first, I'm going to go over what I fucked up on this week. In the last video, I've improved the look of the game slightly by replacing a lot of plain game object with texture painted assets. After I decided on the look of the game, I wanted to expand my terrains to potentially place more towns and mob spawn area for the first floor, and eventually lead to the dungeon for the first boss of the game. Interestingly, I was pleasantly surprised to stumble upon a Unity asset called Gaia, which I apparently bought as part of a Humble Bundle deal a very long time ago. In order to make my money's worth, I've decided to take this as an opportunity to learn how to use this asset. So I spent about 2 days learning it and tried to create my own procedurally generated terrain, but didn't quite achieve what I want. Yeah, but most importantly, I had no idea what I was doing. In the end, I just decided to expand my own terrain using the Create Neighbor feature on the Unity terrain. You know, I've always wondered, have you guys ever felt frustrated watching me build stuff and thought, I can make way better game than this guy? You can, because I'm sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. Have you guys ever wanted to create your own character art for your game? Then you should definitely check out this character illustration course by Gabriel Piccolo. His work is very well known for its narrative and the storytelling elements. He'll teach you from the really basic sketch pose to the head and expression, the styling, drapery, hair, and finally the color. It's a great class for beginners and even intermediate artists too, who love to master character designs for their art. There are also tons of game programming courses like Introduction to VR Development and making a whole different types of games in Unity, which means you can hone your artist skill and programming skills at the same time. Skillshare is created specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads so you can focus on your learning, and they're always launching new premium classes, which is also amazing. It's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, but if you would like to try this for free, there's a link in the description that will give you a free trial of premium membership for the first 1,000 people who click on it. Thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Okay, where were we? Oh yes, the environment. So I started to fill out some empty parts of the field with some plants and rocks. They use something called LOD group, where depending on the camera distance, it replaces its models to a lower resolution one, which is pretty cool for optimization. I also thought it was finally time to fix my character and controller sync issues. In the first video, I mentioned how the character's arms and hands don't really match the controller's positions perfectly. The problem is actually quite an easy fix. I just need to cut off Kirito's head from the model. Yeah, I got a pretty good jump scare from that. That way I don't need to offset the camera position to fix the clipping issues. When I did this, the character's body felt much more in sync and natural. When I do end up implementing multiplayer in the future, I can just replace this with the character head when the other players view you. But the problem doesn't end here, because when you view yourself in the shadow, you're going to be quite scared by your headless character. For this, I had no idea how to fix, so I decided to reach out to another VR developer for help who is currently developing a game called Rumble. Long story short, apparently you can make the game object to be shadow only in the lighting setting. But for something like a mirror, I need to do an extra setup on the camera to make it work. For now, I'm quite glad to have a working solution for it. But thank you so much Kaj for enlightening me. The game looks absolutely pog, so you guys should definitely check Rumble out later as well. Next, I just added a small detail for hand animations for grabbing, and decided to make a big purchase for some high quality stylized creature models from the Unity Asset Store. A lot of the creatures fit the mobs in SAO, so I thought the purchase was pretty reasonable. I then kinda jammed the rocks together to create a temporary water source to place my sea creatures in the nearby area, which actually looked quite decent in game. Probably should later on come back to this area to polish it up, because in my opinion the cliff looks a little bit too unrealistic. Also, literally everybody, and when I say everybody, I've been flooded with so many comments to implement the sword holster to the player, and this wasn't something very hard to do, so I just mashed up some scripts so that you can place your swords at the back of your character. And you can also take it out for future usage as well, which will be quite useful when there are more weapons added to the game later on. I started fiddling around with how some skills would look like in game. I definitely don't have a proper system for this yet, as I need to build a UI to display cooldowns and a whole skill tree system to probably make it work properly, but it was kind of fun messing around with different kind of VFX. Oh, and another thing that I forgot to add that I should have from a long time ago is the sword trail system, which appears depending on the controller's velocity. I also need this crystal looking thingy. Also took me decades to figure out how to make this shape in Blender. Speaking of crystals, I also added a shatter effect when the enemies die to match how the monsters get deleted in SAO. So this is actually not a particle system. Essentially, it works by breaking the meshes in individual triangles to simulate the mesh explosion. Of course, this would be very computationally heavy when the mesh is very high poly, but luckily my models are pretty low poly, so it didn't look too bad in game. In the next couple of videos, I would love to add an experience and leveling system, which means I need to display the loot when the enemies die. This is pretty easy since I can just copy the UI from the anime. Using the world space canvas, I can spawn the UI, which displays the loots when the enemies die. Apparently in SAO, the currency is of type coal, which was a pretty cool finding. But yeah, the actual looting system is not there yet, and I'll probably work on this in the future. Now that I can track controller velocity for the sword trail, this also means I can now implement damage system depending on how hard I swing at the enemy. I just created a very simple damaging system depending on the controller velocity. It still needs a lot of tweaking and work, but yeah, I think I can expand upon this implementation. So another problem that I had from the last video is the enemy AI. It literally just stands there waiting for someone to come near it. So I created a little patrol system to give it a bit of life to the enemy. In the beginning, I just kind of chose a random direction that the enemy can move towards, but they ended up drowning themselves in the river. So I created a spherical area around the enemy where they can walk around. And it seemed to be working alright, except when the enemies move on top of an inclined slope. This can probably be fixed by implementing IK on the enemy leg, which has already been suggested by Melvin. So yeah, lots and lots of things to work on, I guess. I wanted to finish off the week by laying out the map for the dungeon, which will lead to the first boss in the future. And I dropped in some mobs from the stylized creatures, and also dropped in the dash effect because I wanted some fast maneuver skills with Unity particle system. So yeah, I think that's about it. The game is currently very buggy and needs lots and lots of polish, but yeah, I'll continue to implement new exciting features as I go. Before I run around to show you guys what I did, I would love to drop some credits for the Patreon members here, and a special shout out to Diego and Brant. You can download this game for free in the link down below, and join our Discord channel to drop in some suggestions for the game. Comment what you liked and what you didn't like, and you're a cool person if you subscribe. And thanks for watching.